then your destination is not guaranteed. So normally, whenever we are unhappy or whenever we are in depression, we should question that probably this hierarchy is not maintained. This entity relationship diagram, there is some problem. So that means the senses is controlling the mind. That's what happens. You see an advertisement, you don't think whether it's good for you or not. Okay? We go crazy and we try to buy it. That's one example. I mean, it may not happen to everybody, just one example. But there are many cases where you can see that the senses are controlling the mind. So, and the mind is controlling the intelligence, so we lose the rational argument. That's why we take a bad decision in life. So, intelligence will help you to rationally decide. So, you have, say, two jobs. Which job to join to? That's a matter of intelligent design, intelligent decision. And similarly, the soul is superior to the intelligence and it has to govern, so the consciousness or the free will has to guide internally the intelligence.
But
so the thing is that in our day-to-day life, usually this is reversed. So the algorithm that we want to talk about, the algorithm claims to fix this relationship. So that means the algorithm aligns the hierarchy in such a way that soul gains back its power to give proper guidance to the intelligence, and the intelligence gains power to control the mind. And once the mind is controlled, many things are under control, because that can stop unnecessary quarrels, unnecessary problem in personal relationship. When the intelligence is sharp, you can take better decisions, because decisions mean a lot at every point in your life, and the mind will gain control over the senses. So that's the thing. Someone raised a hand. So this is the last point, the algorithm.
Does soul have feelings? So does soul have feelings?
can soul feel?
No.
Why not?
The mind has failed.
Soul is
Okay?
স্যার আপনি বলেছেন একটা অপারেশন হচ্ছিল, হার্টটা বের করে নেওয়া হয়েছিল, করার জন্য লোকটা দেখতে পাচ্ছে না যে এই ঘরে কি কি হচ্ছে। ওই অনুভূতিটা যদি না থাকতো আত্মায়, তাহলে সে দেখলো কি করে ঘরে কি কি হচ্ছে।
দেখাটা তো ফিলিং নয়। দেখাটা তো ফিলিং নয়।
স্যার ফিলিংটা কিভাবে ডিফাইন
ফিলিং মানে ইমোশন। আমি সে ইমোশন।
তাহলে স্যার ইমোশন আর ফিলিংয়ের মধ্যে কোনো ডিফারেন্স নেই। How can a soul see?
মানে তুমি প্রশ্নটা এলাবোরেট করো, হাউ ক্যান আ সোল সি? So can you prove that eyes, without eyes you cannot see? Can you prove it? So that means again you are not proving anything. You are believing in one assumption, that reflecting in the brain is the only way to see a thing. That may not be the only way. So that's the problem in these, the radical science. So in science and spirituality, I say that science says that spirituality assumes so many things, and science everything try to justify with proof, but actually not. I would not say spirituality is better than science, or science is better than spirituality. I would say they are on equal footing. Spirituality is also a science like physics and chemistry and mathematics. It has its own set of axioms and hypotheses. Similarly, in physics and chemistry, biology, you have a lot of hypotheses and axioms and assumptions which you just take for granted. You don't prove. You cannot prove. So that's the thing. Anyway, so the algorithm that I want to talk about, so the name of the algorithm is yoga. And as many of you know, yoga does not only refers to this the physical exercises. That's just only one aspect. So it's a Sanskrit word. It comes from the verb root yuj. Yuj means to link or connect. So whenever we talk about link and connect, so that means we are talking about two different entities which we have to connect together. So these entities in the philosophy of yoga are nothing but the individual soul and the supreme energetic being, or the theory of everything, or the super soul, or God, or the supreme consciousness, or whatever you want to believe. Okay? So the thing is that, so the hypothesis is that when the soul gets connected to the super soul, or for those who do not believe in any personal entity of God, when the consciousness or energy within an individual gets connected to the consciousness and energy that is present in the universe, when your inside gets connected to the outside, then the soul becomes permanently happy. Or, I mean, you, in this life, you become happy and you can experience happiness. You can actually avoid a lot of mishaps in your life because of your own decisions. Because whatever happens outside your hand, that is not in your control. So I am not talking about gaining some mystic powers. No, I am not talking about that. Whatever misery is caused by outside agents, that you cannot stop. That is a matter of social matter, or say maybe achieved through global harmony, through soul philosophy, or many other things. That's a different issue. But what I am talking about, there are many things in life. There are many miseries in life, many failures and unhappiness in life that happens due to our own mind problem, due to our own bad decisions, okay? Due to our own behaviors and wrong approach. So that thing can be prevented, and so you can at least guarantee those, I mean, successes in those aspects that are affected by these decisions.
So yoga is the process to connect soul with the super soul.
Yes, and the effect of that connection is that, so this is an assumption that it's get connected, and the effect, so you can study the effect, because God cannot be seen in normal eyes, but the effect kind of gives evidence of this connection. So the effect is that you will internally understand or realize that yes, my mind is becoming controlled, or I can take better decisions. So that's is in the experiment. So after the experiment you can.
External circumstances will not influence my decision.
Exactly. So normally what happens? Other people's comment or external events influence our decision in life. Okay? Whether it's a decision in the job, or whether it's a decision in academia, that okay, which course I want to study, or say in a project, how to handle a particular member in your team, or how to handle your boss in your office. Normally, we get influenced by the circumstances around us and by our own mind. So there, you can take a better decision and a clearer decision. And this is not, I am talking about, you ask people, you go on your own and do a survey, the people who are doing some sort of yoga and meditation, and whether they have seen any change in their life in their normal day-to-day interaction. I'm not talking about connecting to God and living everything. I'm talking about living your own life, do your office, do your studies, be in relationships, and to experience that whether it makes any change or not. If it does not, throw it away. If it does, probably there is something to believe. That's the point.
So someone is actually offered with two jobs, for example. One company is giving the guy is a good salary package, and other is not giving that amount of salary. But the second one, they do more productive work. Or the guy who is actually going to opt which one to choose, he is probably trying to grab the second one, because the productivity of that company will actually influence the rational decision power of that guy. So don't you think that that is the external event, and no, that actually influences?
That's what happens normally. That's what I'm saying. So basically.
So I guess whenever you are going to take any decision.
So no. Wait a minute. Whether the decision is good or not, you cannot objectively justify. So there is one person making a decision, and you sitting here cannot say this is a bad decision, this is a good decision. That person will justify it, say after 10 years, looking back, that was a good decision and that was a bad decision. So what I am saying, that if you continue this experiment, this is a long process, if you continue this experiment, you will realize yourself that before you were into this algorithm, before you were executing this algorithm, what type of decisions you took in life, and after you started executing this algorithm, how you took different decisions in life, and how did it make changes in your own life. So that person will himself or herself conclude whether that decision was good or bad. So it's an individual process. It's a biological experiment. You cannot objectively say that, okay, two companies, this is good and this is bad. So that's the. So anyway, so as I said, this is a very large topic. So yoga, we can talk about hours and hours and hours, but I will briefly summarize. Probably I will finish in next 5 minutes if you be patient. So this is an outline, and for more detailed study, either you have to introspect, or if you want, I can give another seminar. So the traditional yoga, so this is again beyond religion. For example, this Yoga Sutra was written in such a time when the Christianity did not exist, Islam did not exist, so-called Hinduism did not exist. Okay, so it was written long back, and nowadays this subject yoga is followed in every country, in every religion. So yoga is now treated as a therapy. Even the doctors are studying it. So this is a non-sectarian and non-religious algorithm, I would say. So basically, the original text of Yoga Sutra that talks about 8 different steps. The first step is yama. There are some don'ts, that we should not do this and that. There are some niyama, that mean do's and don'ts. Then there are asana, sitting postures. So normally people focus on only the asana. But the thing is that this is a gradual thing. So for example, in an algorithm, you have step 1, some assignments. Step 2, there are again some assignments, some comparison. And then there is step 3. Now if you have a go-to in the beginning, go to step 3, then of course you are not going to get the expected result that this algorithm is supposed to give you, and then you blame the algorithm. That's not true, right? So when you run a program, you have to run it exactly. When you implement an algorithm, you have to implement it as the specification says. So similarly, in the Yoga Sutra, there is a detailed specification that what is the first step, what are the don'ts and what are the do's, and then details of that, how to do that. Once you achieve that, then you can go to asanas, and then you can go to pranayamas. So sometimes people study pranayams, just see a program in TV and something, start this Anulom Vilom, Kapalbhati and so on, and it has some effect. I would not say that it's totally effectless, but it does not give you the desired effect or the full effect. You get partial benefit, but then you cannot blame why it's not working. Okay. The 5th step is pratyahara. So it's a very deep science. It's not a matter of just picking up something. So pratyahara is withdrawal of the senses from the sense object. That's very difficult. The 6th stage is called dharana, concentration. And if you go along, so the first step, second step, third step, and then you stop, at least you have linearly progress, and maybe you get partial result. But that is better than skipping something. What I'm saying is that maybe people cannot go beyond 5. Say normal people say, you decide that okay, I cannot go beyond 5, maybe 4th is my last stage, suppose. Then what I'm saying is that stopping at 4th stage after 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th is better than directly jumping to 4th stage and stopping. Because at least you have partial output. You have a printf at that point of time, you have the proper output. What should be at that point of time. You don't have a garbage. The 6th stage is dharana or concentration. The 7th stage is dhyana or meditation. So people directly jump into meditation sometimes, which is not good. The 8th stage is called samadhi. That's a very advanced stage, and only very few people have achieved it in the history. Yes. Okay, so that again, as I said, this is a very deep subject. It may take a semester to study, but I will wrap up in less than 5 minutes. So just quickly, what are the don'ts? Ahimsa, non-violence. Satya, truthfulness. Asteya, non-stealing. The basic facts, okay, which we laugh and say that okay, these are in kids' book. Brahmacharya. Then 5th is aparigraha, absence of greed. Do's: cleanliness, contentment, austerities, study of the self, surrender to God. Again, as I said, I am not going into detail. Each step can be again broken down into multiple sub-steps and how to achieve it. So at this point, you may ask that okay, how to do this step? But that's again a big detail. This is the original Yoga Sutra, and there are some modern variants. There is Hatha Yoga from 1500 AD. There is Iyengar Yoga from 1970s, very famous, B.K. Iyengar from South. Bikram Yoga 1970s, very popular in US. Then there is Power Yoga from 1990s.
Iyengar died recently.
Died recently. He was nominated for Nobel Peace Prize this year, 2014, but he died.
January, I think.
So 4 basic principle of any yoga system is a sattvic diet. Again, we can talk a lot about that. No gambling, no intoxication, and no physical relation outside marriage. So these are again the 4 don'ts. Okay. The one point that I want to finish my slides on is that these 8 steps, they are very difficult to achieve, definitely. But there is an alternative method which is called the yoga of sound, or mantra meditation, or chanting, which is a different yoga than these Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. This is, according to me, of course, I mean, you can find the other one easier. It's just my personal feeling is that this yoga is little easier than the other yoga, where you have these 8 steps and so many things you have to do in detail. The yoga of sound means chanting specific mantras to achieve achieve this connection of mind, intelligence, and soul. Okay. So mantra, as you said, man means mind, tra means to save. Mantra literally means that which saves the mind. And again, I should point out that this is common in our religion. So this is again a non-sectarian, non-religious view, because if you look at every religion, they have prayers and specific mantras. If you look at, for example, namaz, if you hear the proper pronunciation of namaz 5 times a day, it has very soothing and peaceful effect on you. If it's properly pronounced, of course. Again, as I said, you have to execute the algorithm properly. So you have to know how to do it. So if you hear and find out that it's not good for you, that means there is some problem. You have to study, to evaluate, to test whether this is good or this is bad. Similarly, there are mantras and prayers in Vedic system. There are mantras and prayers even in church. You go to a church, every church has a choir group. They play music. So that's their mantra meditation. So it does not matter what is your individual religious belief. Okay? You can experiment with any one of them. But my thing is that you go deeper, you study them, learn under a particular authority of that particular subject, and do it properly. That's the only thing that I want to say. Whatever you do. So the analogy is given like a mirror. So for example, when a mirror has lot of dust, you cannot see yourself. You cannot see your proper self. But when you clean the mirror, then you can see your real picture. So normally, the soul we cannot perceive. We may be experiencing. So it is said in the yoga philosophy that mind is a mirror to see the soul. Okay. Again, don't try to relate it with reflection of photons on the mirror surface, because this is an analogy. I am being very specific. This is analogy. Okay. So mind is a mirror to see the soul, but when the mind is full of dirt, then you cannot see the soul, and you will have a lot of bad effects of this world. So the process of seeing the soul is to clean the mind. And how to clean the mind? Through mantras, through meditation. So there are some scientific studies on chanting that you can read it. So 2009 Harvard Medical School study that mantras can change the physical structure of the brain. Mantra reduces stress and anxiety. Florida State University, and there is a paper on MRI study, Om chanting, how the brain MRI changes after chanting this.